It was a typical day in the quiet but prestigious neighborhood of Greenwich, Connecticut. Ethan Morris, a 35-year-old lawyer specializing in inheritance law, had just inherited an old house from his great-uncle, Howard Clark, whom he had never met. Howard was known for his eccentricity and reclusive lifestyle. Ethan arrived on the property to take inventory. The house was luxurious but neglected. In the basement, behind a thick oak panel, Ethan found a storage room that was not on any of the blueprints. Inside was a massive steel safe, a 1930s Mosler model. After 2 weeks of working with a local specialist, the safe finally gave way. There were no gold bars or jewels inside. There were only 3 neat envelopes and a sheet of paper on which was written in careless handwriting. Wealth is not what you have, but what you have created. These envelopes contained old but perfectly preserved legal documents dating from 1890 to 1920, an era known as the Gilded Age. Envelope number 1. The Railroad Empire. These were stock certificates. Not large blocks, but thousands of small par value shares of Central Pacific Railroad and Union Pacific. The main detail that caught Ethan's attention was that these shares had never been re-registered. They lay dormant in the name of Clark Investment Trust, a fund that no one knew existed. Ethan found a record showing that Clark's grandfather, George, had exchanged a huge tract of land in what was then little-known southern Texas for these shares. Envelope number 2. Oklahoma Oil Fields. Most impressive was the original 1905 contract for a share in the oil rights to 3,000 acres of land in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was a joint venture with a company that later became part of the giant Standard Oil. The agreement guaranteed 0.5% perpetual royalties from any production on this land. For decades, these funds were deposited into a special anonymous account. Envelope number 3. Swiss Fund and New Technologies. Here is a copy of a notarized deed for the opening of a special trust account at the Bank of the United States in Zurich in 1912. This was not just money. According to the instructions, part of the capital was invested in innovative companies that are changing the world, and this turned out to be the key point. Ethan discovered investment receipts from the 1990s and 2000s for the purchase of shares in little-known startups at the time, Amazon, Google, Apple. It was a small but very early stake that grew exponentially over the decades. Ethan, a lawyer through and through, realized the scale of the find. It wasn't cash, but a complex network of assets that needed to be untangled through numerous lawsuits and negotiations. His heart was pounding not so much from the money as from the intellectual challenge. As he began to untangle the web of railroad stocks, he encountered his first problem. The dormant shares in the trust name had to be reactivated. This required proof of continuous ownership for 100 years, which Ethan did using property tax records from Clark's archives. His law firm in New York was on high alert. The second problem was that when Ethan approached the oil company to claim his royalty rights, he was met with fierce resistance. The company's lawyers argued that the contract had lapsed due to lack of active claims. The legal battle in the Oklahoma federal court lasted 8 months. Ethan won, proving that the contract contained the phrase regardless of active collection, which forced the oil giant not only to restore royalties, but also to pay retroactive payments for the past 50 years. That was the first billion he received. The trip to Switzerland was the big moment. The bank treated Ethan with the respect you'd only get for the oldest clients. It turned out that the money he put into tech giants early on had turned into shares worth tens of billions of dollars. Howard Clark himself was not an eccentric, but a financial genius who had created a passive, invisible trust in advance, which flourished while he lived modestly. Receiving compensation for his work, Ethan Morris, a former ordinary lawyer, became one of the richest people in America. The total value of the assets he unlocked exceeded $60 billion. He moved from his modest loft apartment in Manhattan to Clark's estate. One day, while sipping tea by the fireplace, he remembered his grandfather's note, "Wealth is not what you have, but what you have created." Ethan didn't just become an investor.